introduce myself as well. So my name is Bruno, and I work at the Dr. Sen Yat-Sen Classical Chinese Garden here in Vancouver, Canada. And I am the Events and Communications Coordinator. And I've been very, very lucky to be allowed to have this platform and to invite some artists and fortunate to learn from them and with them. So I think it's wonderful. So I would like to first and foremost to thank you all very, very much for joining us from all over the world, from the West Coast to the East Coast. So thank you all so much. And they probably really don't need a lot of presentations, but before I go into both Glenn Lewis and Lam Wong, who collaborated for Luminous Garden, which is the third exhibition of Lam Wong's Artist in Residency program at the Garden, that hopefully will get to set up and allow you all to enjoy if you're in Vancouver or visiting Vancouver. We also have a website called luminousgarden.ca where you can see the show. It evolves, so we're just putting up things as we go, because much like a garden, this is a virtual exhibition that it keeps changing as well. And the talk will be probably around 50 minutes. We're going to do things slightly differently from all of you who are joining us for a second or third time. So we're going to first show everyone, Lam and Glenn will show you Luminous Garden. And at the end of that part, we'll allow everyone to ask a question, pose a comment, and you can do that either raising your hand. There's a function here on Zoom, or chatting with me. I will allow the chat room for everyone to chat with me, and I will pose your comments or your questions to both Lam and Glenn as well. So after this first part, we will go into tea zen. So both Lam and Glenn, I believe, are having tea right now. So they're gonna talk more about how tea inspires both of them and how tea brings them together and brings us all together in these times. So without further ado, I welcome you all very, very much. And let's enjoy the show. Thank you all.
Should I share my screen?
Yes, please, Lam. Yes.
Okay. Okay, I'll start from here. Okay, can you guys all see my screen now? Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for coming, and I'd like to acknowledge we in the unceded traditional territory of the Coast Salish people, especially North Vancouver, Tsleil-Waututh, Squamish, and Musqueam. And I'll just start with, we're going to show you a few things, Glenn, like, you know, what Bruno's saying. I'll show you a couple of websites, a couple of videos, and some of the works from the Luminous Garden show, mainly photography, and also Glenn's ceramic tea bowls in Chawan. And from there, then we can open up maybe for more discussion. So I'll try to go through this quickly here. So for me personally, it's all started from here in about 16 years ago. My passion for garden started from what you see in here. So take my family to Kyoto in this temple, Zen temple called Rionji. And it's got the world's most famous rock garden, and the experience was profound. So I normally spend a lot of time in the wild, in the nature, and also garden and doing meditation now. And but that experience is really started me for doing this whole series of photography, for garden photography. Especially, I like to capture the light, because I spend a lot of time watching the lights changing all the time. Anywhere I go, I just watch the light. So and then it becomes sort of a habit. And after many years, and then I accumulate all this collection. So, but what you're seeing here is my wife and my son was in Rionji Okay, let's see. And that's the name of the garden. And nobody really know what's going on with Rionji, like who created it, but it becomes sort of a masterpiece of wabi-sabi aesthetics, represent the whole idea of wabi-sabi, and which is in these three frames. So in this photograph, which is going to go into the show as well, um, it represents about incompleteness, impermanence, and imperfect. So I happened to do a talk about 6 years ago, and it's talk about the importance of imperfection. So I was drawing on from this wabi-sabi philosophy. The other thing about the tea and also the garden and the Japanese tea ceremony, it's bringing together the idea of beauty. And the wabi-sabi aesthetic is very much about the imperfection. So you see the child, like, there's couple example of chawans, like even it's broken, but they have this technique called kinzuki, using the gold leaves to mend it back together, and then it become more precious in that way. And that kind of sort of imperfect side of aesthetic is very much an important part of the philosophy. This is a photo from the gate that you go into the Rionji, the garden. They have a water basin here. And I don't know who designed this, but it looks like a Chinese gold coin design from the money, old money coin. And it combined very willfully, like combining 4 characters together to show the design. Let's see. And this 4 character is 知助为我, 知助为吾. That means knowing containment, only me. So it's a beautiful thing. So that is on the gate before you go into the rock garden. Okay, now what I'm gonna do is going to Luminous Garden's website right now, and then take you through a few of our work that going to go into the show. By the way, the Luminous Garden was supposed to be open in April 17, which is in the mix of the pandemic. We cannot install it and we cannot open the show, and that's why it has postponed it. And we decided to build this website to showcase online exhibition, and thank you for the garden staff like Bruno's and his team that put it together really beautifully. Okay, so I'll go there. So first of all, if you want to see, you can just go to the Luminous Garden. There's a short essay in there. But let's go to the gallery. And Bruno can also maybe talk about the site a little bit. It's like a briefing site. So it's ongoing. We keep building it again and again. And we try to keep it a bit of a sort of multimedia 4-dimensional sense of presentation. So here we even have like some birds and insect sounds that are recorded. So okay, I'll start it from the work here, and then maybe some of the work I can talk about, and then when we go to Glenn's work, Glenn can jump in and talk about it. So like I said, all my works in the show, it's all about capturing the light in the garden setting or in the nature setting. So this one is actually an afternoon sun in Yat-Sen Garden. So it's on the public side of the garden. I call it Willow. The garden is just right across from my studio in Chinatown on Pender Street, Pender and Carroll. So I go to the garden and have lunch all the time because it's so easy. I'll just go to Chinatown and go to some of the bakery shops or some of the Hong Kong style cafe and get my favorite lunch. And I go to the garden and sit there and have my lunch. and I'll be meditating there and looking at the light. So this is the sun under the willow tree. Okay, so that's why I call it willow. Okay, next one is mine too. It's called Saltfield. So this is in a small little island in Hong Kong, which I took my father there for a few trips. We went there for a long boat trips to the islands and then tour around the island. And the island itself was famous about 150 years ago, was famous for farming salt. And then they also colonial Catholic church in there. It's really beautiful. All the villages that move out, I think there's only a few families in there, but they all move out now. And the government converted into like an art exhibition, like art center. So so I went there for a little hike with my dad and took that photo. Okay, now this is Glenn. So Glenn, do you want to jump in?
I think so. I'm still on your contentment page.
Are you still on my contentment page? Okay. Uh-oh.
Yeah. Do I have to go to another page?
No, you should be able to see live.
I can't see anything except contentment and your pictures on the side with Bruno and
uh-oh.
Francois.
So it looks like we had a bit of technical problem here.
I don't know.
Bruno, any suggestions?
There's the thing at the top says you're viewing Lam Wong's screen.
Yeah, no worries. I believe I can be the one sharing my screen, and then I'll ask just for you, Lam, just to stop sharing your screen probably,
Okay.
and I will try and do that.
Okay, and hopefully Glenn can.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Okay, I have stopped my screen share now.
Okay,
now I can see Bruno.
Yeah.
Full screen Bruno.
Well, it's not what people have signed up for, I believe. But let me just try and share my screen with all of you. Just give me one moment.
I think Lam's got something he wants. Are you showing my work on? Oh, here we go.
Okay, just once. Okay.
Okay.
This is Lam's picture. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you very much for staying all with us. I think, Lam, if you don't mind, can you just walk us through again the willow, and I will go and.
No, you can kick to the next one. I already talked about this too. So.
Okay, so.
Yeah. Go to next one, and then go to next one. So, Glenn, we are seeing your bewilderness. Yeah, with sculpture.
Yeah, this is one of my photos in the show. In 2016, I went to a number of gardens in Japan, mostly in Suzhou, and which is very famous center. It's sort of like they call it the Venice of China because it has all these canals, but it also has all these gardens in it. At least about I don't know, maybe 15 gardens, and they were built by mandarins, like the ex-officials who retired, and then they would retire to Suzhou and build their garden, and not let the emperor know about it because he might get jealous or something. But this is in another place called the Wood Sculpture Museum Garden in Kaiwa, which is a city, and it was an amazing place because it had all these. They're building a lot of new temples in China now, which is amazing, really. Partly because they don't have any priests for them. They're bringing in priests from India and so on. But this particular garden had a number of temples that had been built in it, brand new temples, and they were full of these fantastical, huge wooden sculptures, like some of them Buddhist sculptures, but other ones were, sort of looking like surrealist kind of furniture, things like that. It was quite amazing. And the garden was huge, and this was just one part of it. And they had, as you can see, they built this rock. These are rocks which have a strange. They must have been eroded by water at some time. Anyway, they built them into a very natural looking sort of thing, which I call bewilderness. I've been photographing gardens since the '60s, and I've defined them by by 9 different categories that I figured out on my own that sort of codify the elements or the features in gardens. And I have my number one of the 9 is I call bewilderness, and it's like the wild garden or the wild landscape before gardens. And so this is the first picture in that regard.
Next
You got
one,
another picture, Lam? Or?
No, next one is
the
yours.
pot kind.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a pot I made, a tea bowl I made in Bizen. I was in Bizen for 3 months in 2016 making pottery there. And they have a very interesting tradition. They dig the clay up from the rice paddies, and they clear the soil off the rice paddy, dig up the clay, and potters buy the clay from the landowner, from the rice paddy owner, and then they store it quite often for their son, for the succeeding generation. So it sits around, for 50 years in their place, and it sort of matures, I guess, that way. And anyway, that's what you're told. And it's when they fire it, they don't glaze it. They just put the clay is very fine textured, and so as you can see on this pot in the front part of it there, and the wood, you fire it like I helped fire a kiln. This was in that kiln firing for 8 days, and then the kiln cools for 8 days, and the ash from the wood, from the pine wood and other wood, falls on the pot, all over the pot, except for this part you see in the middle, which I've covered, like I protected it with a piece of clay just stuck on the front loosely, and so it didn't get the ash on it. But underneath the little that red line was from some rice straw that I wrapped around it underneath the patch of clay. So you could play with these ideas of I guess in some ways kind of decorating it. It was fascinating. Here's another aspect of a garden I saw in Shanghai. There's a garden in Shanghai called the Yuan. Yuan means garden in Chinese. So this is the Yu Garden in Shanghai. It's an old garden, fantastic, quite big, very popular, gets filled up with people. I stayed in a hotel right next to the garden. I figured it out before I even went there, that I wanted to get in as soon as it opened in the morning before the people got in there. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to take pictures the people would be all over the bridge here and so on, right? The takeaway, I wanted to see if I could. So I was running ahead of the people and taking photographs throughout the garden. And I went back the next day and did the same thing, only in black and white. So that was fun. So this is one of the other features, the pathway. And a bridge is a pathway. In this case, it goes over water. So the path joins all the different parts of the garden together, but it has its own sort of center, if you like, its own kind of mythology as well. This must be one of yours. Yep.
Yeah, so that is one of my photo.
Looks like a footprint.
It does look like a footprint. It's got a very particular.
Is it Buddha's footprint?
Yeah, I like this. I like this thing. It's a Buddha's footprint, but it's actually in a First Nations sacred wetland. It's called Commissar Blocks, which is Brian Murphy was telling me about near UBC. And I was falling in love with this place. So I went to go for a walk quite some time and taking my wife there sometimes. And I saw these beautiful colors and moss and mixture of moss and different minerals and purple, blue, green, brown, golden, yellow with lights on it in the edge, and was just quite fascinating. And so this is one of the photos. Yeah. Okay. So this is another photo of mine. It's I titled it Chiba. Chiba is one of the Japanese town. So this photo is taken in a Japanese garden in North Vancouver. And believe it or not, I lived in North Van for over um, 20 years now, 22 years now. And, and many people, even in North Vancouver, doesn't even know, or in Vancouver, nobody really know there's actually a Japanese garden in North Vancouver.
I didn't know that.
Exactly, but it's close to Waterfront Park, and apparently North Vancouver and the city of Chiba in Japan, they're sister towns, sister cities.
Oh.
So they have this idea about bringing the whole Japanese gardener to come here, build this Japanese garden. But unfortunately, it wasn't very well taken care of. As you know, Japanese garden needs a really high maintenance work, and also it's very highly specialized. So gardener know how to deal with it. So it's kind of just left there. It was a bit of a rundown, but either way, I still, I find out there's a Japanese garden. So I went down there and have a walk. And I saw this light just shining on those three rocks, kind of reminds me of the Rionji in Kyoto. So this is, yeah, that photo.
Oh, this is one of mine. This is another garden in Suzhou. Suzhou, I think I already mentioned, was the Venice of China. And this is one of the gardens in there called Qi Yuan. How do you pronounce X-I?
Xiyuan, Xiyuan.
Qi Yuan.
Xiyuan.
Xiyuan. Okay.
Means West Garden.
West Garden. Ah, right. Okay. And this is a courtyard. That's another feature. It's like the field or the court, the open field or the closed courtyard, the kind of the center of the garden. And sometimes you would get in the center, you would get a parterre or a maze, or like a bunch of flower beds and that kind of thing, or a meeting place. It might have been the place where you would build originally, in the origins of the house or something like that. Anyway, this is quite a beautiful courtyard with these trees, and I think those are paving stones, or maybe stones from a building that had been torn down, something like that. So so you would come in from the wilderness, from the wildness. You'd pass through a gateway. We didn't show one of the gates, although there's one here, and then you'd follow the pathway. And you might encounter some, like inside the gateway, you might encounter some fearsome beings, like protecting the garden or the garden gate. Like in the Garden of Eden, they had the cherubim would be protecting the tree of life from intruders, that kind of thing. Or you had to be a really good person to be led into it, so to speak. And so then you would carry on the pathway until you get to the center here. And then after that, there's other things like the trees and the waterways and the sacred mountain and the grotto at the end.
This is one of mine. So this, I was helping a friend, Danny, who's a ceramic artist from Sharper Art Center in Burnaby. And so a lot of time I'll go and help you unload the chawan from the kiln. They're doing the wood fire there in the outdoor camp. And sometimes I have to wait around. So I go and very often go around for a walk in the park, and also in the Deer Lake, and so this is one of those locations. I quite really love this photo. I don't know why. Just like all those dry grass that is sort of going to different direction, and then light just kind of coming out from there, and it
Is
gives
there
me
a
a
blue
great.
spot in the middle?
What's that?
Is there a blue spot in the middle?
Oh yeah, that's just from the refraction of the lens
Oh,
from
okay.
the light. Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. But so to me, this kind of contemplation with the lights, it's personally for me, it's a definition of like sort of enlightenment. If you can tap into that sort of uh, zone, and the Japanese has a really good word for it. It's called komaribi, which means the sun shine through behind the tree. Yeah, the sunlight shine through behind the tree, and it's yeah another one of my meditative moments.
And here we have a gateway. Now the gateway would have been before the pathway, of course, and the courtyard. But curiously, they had a number of these things. Why did they look like a Dairy Queen ice cream cone? You know, what is that? Is it like a flame? Do you think a flame image? Why would they have made a gateway like that? I wonder. Or would it be a flicker, like a kind of an idea of a spirit, like passing through somehow? I don't know.
My
What
guess
do you
is
think?
that might be a Taoist influence of because they have a lot of this simple shape of clouds, like kind of like a cartoon cloud, a wind or some sort. To
A
me, that
what?
looks like a cloud, like a cloud in the sky, and wind.
Cow?
Yeah,
A milk cow? You mean?
no, cloud, like a rain.
Cloud.
Yeah, rainy cloud.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's we have a simple form like that. Yeah, but I don't know.
Is it
It's my
maybe
guess.
a calligraphic form of some sort?
Yeah, like a simple choreographic or
Uh-huh.
yeah, ink drawings kind of
The
form.
other shape they use for the gateways are shapes of pots for some reason, like a vase.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, and I'm told that that's a symbol of plenty. It's like our cornucopia
Mm,
symbol. Like you know that the cornucopia is a kind of a horn with things pouring out of it.
right.
Like that's a symbol for the plenty or richness or something, and the Chinese one is the jar. I guess you'd put things in the jar, right?
Yeah,
Like the
because it means always full, right? We want things
yeah,
to be full. Yeah.
I suppose. Yeah, I don't know.
I get,
Maybe I don't know if this has any connection to that, but I couldn't help but think it was a bit like a Dairy Queen ice cream cone top. It's wonderful, and there were quite a few of these gateways. And this is a this is like real rock that they dredged up from a lake Tai, Tai, which is near Suzhou, uh, and they're very fond of these sort of strange surrealistic rocks in Chinese gardens. And this is a very elaborate one. You can walk on top of it, and then you can walk down into the sort of the grottos or the little caves and things underneath and through them. Um, and this is in the Lion Grove Garden in Suzhou. That's what it's called. I don't know what. Do you know what it's called in Chinese? Lion Grove. The Lion Grove.
like 狮子林.
Uh
Yeah.
huh.
Yeah. Like yeah.
Okay. Anyway, it has a big lake, not a lake, a pond in it, and then this juts out into it, and there's bridges and so on. It's quite an elaborate garden.
I just want to add that actually in the Chinese garden in Vancouver, in downtown, in Chinatown,
Yeah, there's one there too.
it's the Citizen Garden. We also have one underneath the Ting, which is the gazebo. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, yeah. There's a smaller edition of it there in the Sun Yat-Sen Garden. This would be like the like you see at the bottom here, that opening like a cave. That would be a grotto. So this would be the end of the journey from the pathway in my 9 features of the garden, and it's sort of like the cave or the grotto. It's kind of like a new beginning, like a new gateway that you pass through. And it could be symbolizing, the garden could be symbolizing the journey from birth till death. The idea of this being the end of the garden. Not a very good photo of mine. This is very small. Like it's a gnome, a special gnome that they would quite often open an open little sake cup. They usually use them at weddings, the open ones. The closed ones, like little cups, they would use more for everyday things. And this is a Chino glaze. It's called a red Chino, so it's kind of pinkish and orangey colored, but it's traditionally sort of white, a white glaze. And this one is tinged; it has a red tinge to it from iron in the glaze. It's one of the traditional glazes in Japan.
This is also related to Japan as well. So about 2 years ago, I went to Japan and go to a lot of mountains, especially in the Wakayama area. And I went to a lot of their pilgrimage routes, like, you know, for Japanese, they're sacred routes for pilgrims. And this is in a mountain region area called Kumeno Kodo. And Kumeno Kodo, a Kodo basically means the ancient route. And so you go through quite a few mountains and then went through a few temples there as well. And so this is, and I was by myself, so this is, you know, it's sort of pilgrimage spirit. So, and I spent a few days there walking around, and I saw this beautiful flower, and so yeah, so this is it. Yeah, I have to say this is probably the only one that doesn't have a light effect, a luminous effect in the photo from the whole show. But a lot of my photos also kind of have this dark aesthetics to it, to contrast with the light. So in this sense, this photo, the flowers, for me, is representing being the light. Okay, so this photo was taken from my first, the show that I organized together. It's called Chaji. And this is one of the events that we do in the garden. It was presented by the Heart of City Festival. So I was doing a curatorial tour, going through the whole show of Chaji. This is quite a big show involved with 6 artists. And then after the tour, we sit down. So we set up a tea ceremony in the center of the Chinese garden, right by the pond there. And it's a beautiful day. And everybody's in good spirits, so we have a really pleasant time there. And very often during my residency, I will be making tea for a lot of cultural builders and artists in the garden. And then also give them a bit of a tour about the show as well, and the artwork and the artists. So tea ceremony it's a big part of my practice, to bringing people together spiritually and also culturally and artistically as a communion. So I really miss that. So I'm hoping that one day soon that I go back and make tea for people. Hopefully this COVID-19 thing will clear up soon. Okay, this is another one of mine. It's called Light Dust. So you're seeing quite a few of these photographs now from the series. And this one is actually the first one I ever took for this whole series. This is the photo kind of sent me through that journey of creating this series of Luminous Garden. So it's this one's taken in the Lost Lagoon in Stanley Park. Okay, that's another one of mine. This was a really beautiful experience I have with taking this photo. I took my bike and went down really in the deep wood in North Vancouver here, up in the wood, uh, past Lynn Valley Canyons and also the Seymour rivers, and go up and up and up and really in there. I spent the whole day there because I was determined to find this lake. It's called Lost Lake, a friend of mine was telling me, and it was really uh, hard to get there. But once I get there, I was really happy because not a soul around the whole day. Um, and it was height of the summer, so I dip right in and have a swim. Um, and the water is just so good, so refreshing. And then there's a lot of salamander in the lake, and they're not really even afraid of people. I was just swimming around with salamander and
How about
spent
bears?
bears.
Bear, yeah. Do you see any bears?
Uh, Luckily, I didn't see any bears, but I'm sure there's a lot of bears there. So I got my bike, so I thought I would outrunning the bear, but maybe that's a wishful thinking. Anyway, so that is in the North Shore Mountain here.
This is a photograph from the Uyuan in Suzhou, another garden there, and these represent their um, how would you call it? Their spiritual mountain um, symbol, I guess you could say, or sacred. Their kind of sacredness of their mountains. The Japanese also like Mount Fuji is a Japanese sacred mountain. I'm not quite sure why mountains were so important to people. I guess maybe it's because they stuck up in the landscape and it was like something they noticed, and so they gave a name to it, and it sort of identified where they were in the landscape. When you think about way back, how did people distinguish, where they lived? And it would be through, identifying certain features in the landscape that they would remember and name. And so that's probably one of the origins of that. But then they would make these miniature landscapes, and this is one of them. Just like Roangi, they would make a miniature landscape in that sense in the sand garden. This is another type of recreating those landscapes, or recreating the landscape as a garden, if you like.
Yeah.
And the kind of purpose of that, because it was probably, the original landscape that people lived in uh, back before history. And so this would be very important to them. And the garden, in a way, kind of is a reminder of that original home of mankind was in nature. And it's interesting to think about, well, why do people make gardens? It seems like an odd thing to do in some ways, and they actually, gardens are preserved. I mean, when you many gardens you go into are very ancient. I mean, they haven't been, filled in and built high rises on them or something. They seem to persist, and I think it's this because people, when they go into them, they perhaps feel freer in nature. That's a reminder of their original home or something like that. Anyway, that's one of the reasons I got involved with looking at gardens, photographing gardens, and being in gardens, and why I think that maybe artists should get into creating gardens, which would be kind of interesting, like public artworks almost. This is another tea bowl. This one I made in Shigaraki, which is along with Bizen, that other pot that I showed you. Bizen and Shigaraki and 4 other kiln sites in Japan are known as the 6 ancient kiln sites. And they're from like the 12th century. And it was really interesting for me to actually go to one of these places to make pottery, because it was like going back to the 12th century in some ways. The kilns, were the same and the clays were the same, this kind of thing. Where else can you do that in the world? So this was wonderful. This is a much rougher kind of clay, which they also didn't glaze. It's just flashed. The glaze is a result of the ash from the wood mingling with the silica in the clay to form a slight glaze on it, depending on where it is in the kiln. And this is a rough clay. All these little white spots are little spots of feldspar that melt at a high temperature. So anyway, that was quite a wonderful experience. I figured I was getting old, and I thought, if I don't get to these places, I never will. So I went off to Japan for 7 months, and I went to Shigaraki first, this place, and then I went to Bizen for 3 months, which was wonderful.
Yeah, so this it's just a tea ceremony setting there. It's just another angle from the tea ceremony you saw earlier when I was doing tea. Yeah.
Oh, another tea bowl. This is in the Shino glaze, that red Shino glaze that I mentioned before. Shino was made in another place called Mino, which is another, I think, another ancient kiln site, which is near Nagoya. And they still make Shino. And Shino's become a very, very popular glaze amongst potters in North America and in other places too. And there are different kinds of Shino. There are some Shinos that trap carbon in the glaze from the firing, and they have these sort of black areas and gray areas in them. This is more of an oxidized one.
Okay, this one is called chachisu. Yeah, so it's chachisu is basically tea room, tea room in Japanese, and this is in one of the my experience that I had in the Toby Garden with Brian Mulville and the Urasenki School of the Japanese Tea Ceremony. So we went there for a tea ceremony in the garden there in UBC. And so I took this photograph of the lights entering in the small entrance of the tea room. And yeah, I think it's quite nice with the stepping stone and the flowers outside. It's kind of inviting the guests inside another well. Okay. Okay, this one is titled Secrets. It's quite rare actually to have this kind of lights in the pond. And there's a phenomenon. I forgot what's the term, but it's quite rare. You see the rainbow sort of reflection often, and this was actually the first time I saw it too. And I believe it was formed by the mineral deposit of the plants, some of the decaying plants, and then they release the oil back to the water surface that create this rainbow color, and it looks like the rainbow is just spilling through the surface of the water surface, and it's really quite beautiful. Yeah, so I included 2 photos of this in the show, and this one's called Secret is because it's in a wetland near Secret Cove in Sunshine Coast. Okay, let's glance.
Yeah, this is in the Yuyuan in Shanghai, and I quite like this photo because it's got this wonderful dragon up at the top there, overlooking, like sort of growling at the people down below here. And actually, you can walk up. The garden goes behind there, so you can see the dragon from the opposite side too, which is really interesting. And then below the dragon is another one of those weird rocks. And this would be a photograph of what I call utopiary. It's the memories of the people and animals and things in paradise or in the garden, and you can see that they make sculptures of things and put them in the garden, and they remind you of sort of the original inhabitants of the landscape.
Okay, so I believe this is concluded our the show on the website from Luminous Garden. Should we open up for a little bit of question and then see how much time we have? We can show other stuff as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to stop my screen share now. So now it's the time that we open up the floor for any questions or any comments you might have for both Lam and Glenn as well. You were free to do it through the chat room if you want to, or just raise your hand. There's that chance that you have on Zoom as well. So now we already actually have here first question. It's directed to Lam, but first of all, I want to appreciate both Glenn and Lam for this wonderful exhibit, and they cannot wait to see more. I believe I've mentioned in the beginning of this talk that the website, it's going to evolve through time. So we'll be adding more photos, we'll be adding more things there. So feel free to join in, to tune in and log in. So I have a question for Lam. How long did it take from the first photo to the last photo this exhibition?
How long does it take?
How long? I believe it's from the first photo to the last one. What was the amount of time that it took to compile all these photos?
For me, it's well, when Glenn and I, we talk about the idea of Luminous Garden, you know, I had a visit with his studio and then look over his stuff. And then, so that was kind of the beginning of it. And then I go to my collection, because I also got hundreds of these kind of photos in my collection. So going through the photo database took quite a long time. And my guess is probably it took me about 2 weeks or so to go through all of them and then select about 13, 14 together and to put together. So Ken and I we were talking about the idea in about before I went back to Hong Kong. So it's probably around the October, November time, right, Glenn?
Mm-hmm.
That's when we first talked about, yeah. Okay.
And the lunches.
And the lunches, yeah. Okay.
So, thank you very much. So I have another question from Philippa. So are your photos analog or digital? And which camera do you prefer to use?
Okay, is that towards Glenn or me? Why don't you go ahead, Glenn?
Yeah,
oh,
for both.
Okay. I used a Fuji X Pro 2, I think it was. They're remarkable cameras, and they have really, really great lenses. I have right now. I traded those in, and now I have a even more super duper camera. It has 50 megapixels. It's a Fuji GFX R50R. That's what it's called. I can never remember all the numbers and letters for them.
For me, it's I'm not really primary a photographer. Although I was getting into photography when I was really young, even when I was in high school, and I used to have my own dark room back in Edmonton about 30 years ago. But I'm mainly a painter. So my photos really focus more autobiographical, like my own experience. And so I tend to just have whatever camera I have in hand. I have 2 SLR, like one Nikon and one Canon, and then combining with my phones and all that. So it's just different various sources. Yeah.
So thank you, Felipa. Thank you both for your answers. So I have another question, and I believe this will be the last one, so we can have still a little bit of time for a few more slides from Tizen.
Sure.
So, yeah, so is, for both of you as well, is meditation a huge part of your art practice?
Glenn, you want to go ahead?
I don't meditate, formally or anything like that. But I think what happens is when you're actually in the process of making the work, it's kind of a meditative experience to, when you're taking a picture, for instance, of something, you're so into it, like you kind of forget where you are you're surrounding other than what you're focusing on. And that's the same with any sort of artwork. I think that I do, like making a pot also is similar. It's kind of a non-space in that sense.
Well, I totally agree to that. I think creating art and making it's one of the most important spiritual practice for me as well. And to that it's a form of meditation. But personally, I'm also a meditator. I've been meditating for a long, long time. Actually, I'm sitting in my meditation room and also it works as my tea room right now as well. So during this pandemic, I spent a lot of time here making tea and meditating in the same time. So maybe I'll just give you a quick little. Yeah, there you go.
Nice.
Look, and so Glenn and I also supposed to have tea today while we're talking. So
I forgot.
Huh?
I forgot.
You forgot. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have your chawan with you?
No, I have a glass of water.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so I brought in this Song Dynasty
Right.
Timuku's chawan. That we're having tea, and then there's a small one also Timuku as well, and sitting in here. But yeah, meditation is, to me, it's very close to my heart. It's a lifelong practice, and I find that it really helps also not just become a better person, but also become a better artist for myself.
Thank you. And so while probably Lam, if you want to try and start setting up the Tizen,
okay,
I will allow you to share the screen as well. So if you have any further questions, you have my email, so we can all send questions through email, and I'll make sure that I forward them to both Glenn and Lam as well. So now for the second part, it's going to be around tea and tea ceremonies in Tizen. So
can you see my screen now?
Yes, Glenn, perfect. Lam,
okay,
perfectly, thank you.
Okay, so my relationship with the tea and art exhibition, it started in 2015, which I organized a show called Tizen. And it goes for the whole summer. And we have two venues. One is in the Yat-Sen Garden, and one is in Visual Space Gallery near UBC in Dunbar. And we put together about good over a dozen of workshops together from different traditions of tea and artists, ceramics, meditators, and Zen talk. Yeah, we have a workshop about calligraphy, live calligraphy demo from my father, and in there is my dad. So we have three artists, including my dad Don Wong and Brian Melfield, and also myself. So if you go to tarts.ca, you see all this info in there, and because of time, I'm just gonna scroll it quickly. So this is some of my works, photograph and painting, and some of the installation shots. Okay, and calligraphy demo, Japanese tea ceremony. This is actually a Taiwanese tea ceremony. Zen talk by Shin from Vancouver Zen Center, and this is Sakano Sensei doing the Japanese tea ceremony, and that's Brian serving the wagashi, which is the Japanese tea sweet. That's a close-up to wagashis. And Gongfu Cha, here's the three artists. Anyway, so it's quite a bit of documentation I just put together because during the pandemic. Maybe what I'll do is show you the video, a short film trailer from the Yat-Sen film. I spent about 5 years put this film together, and starting with 2010 to 2015. So we'll see. Hopefully this. Okay, hopefully the internet will be good enough to show the video. Well, let's give it a try. 那么茶有很多的境界，跟老庄的很多的思想，跟禅宗人的思想是不一样的。
Preparing tea in a way that it became an art form by which to cultivate one's state of awareness. So, in that sense, tea is like a meditation in action.
Okay, so yeah, so that's the trailer for the film. Last time I was showing it, it's about 5 years ago, and I believe we wanted to do another screening this summer, but right now we don't know what the plan is with the pandemic. So so hopefully that will be still happening in the summer. And the other thing I wanted to just quickly show you is the Chaji show. This is the first exhibition that we put together at the Yat-Sen Garden. And yeah, Glenn was, of course, came to the opening and also came to the tour as well. And and then later on, we decided to do this Luminous Garden show. So this, again, has a lot to talk about the tea, the arts, and ceramics, calligraphy, and all those aesthetic that would bring together by tea ceremony. And Glenn also wrote a long essays about how the egalitarianism of tea ceremony would bring everything, all the different discipline of arts together. And in this show, that's kind of exactly what we do. Have a lot of different media, sculptures, new media, photography, calligraphy, paintings, and yeah, and also tea ceremony as well. Yeah, and one of the main residencies is making the scholar study into a tea room, and that's why we have tea here all the time. And here is also a very rare event that Brian Murphy was presenting Song style, matcha style tea ceremony demo. Okay. And the last thing I want to show is a clip of video of Glenn
I don't think we have time.
Huh?
I don't think we have time now. It's okay.
Do we have, it's only 2 minutes. Do we have 2 minutes?
Yeah, we do, of
Okay.
course.
Okay, it's only
Okay.
2 minutes, so we'll go for this. So this is Glenn talk about his arts, and because we think it's very relevant because he's walking around in the Chinese garden as well. So there we go. Oh, wait a second.
I think the value of art in many ways is about the perception of things around you and to be able to appreciate your everyday life. There we go. There is a certain treasure in a mundane thing. I mean, if you regard it long enough and think about it, you can make it into something, you know, or you see it as something more extraordinary. Beautiful carving in these things. I think the journey in the garden is that it represents our journey through life. I mean, it just interests me to understand the world and to understand people better in that sense. Finding your way through, right? How to get to the end of your life.
I don't.
I'm not that introspective sometimes about the work. I'll have to take a picture of you guys over there, I think, or something.
Meeting
at the... And often I'll forget about it afterwards too. You know, I'm on to the next thing. Bruno, you might mention that maybe in July they'll put the show up.
Yeah, hopefully. So we'll open up the floor once more. If anyone has any questions, any comments, please feel free to use the chat room or to raise your hand. On my behalf and on behalf of the garden, I would really like to appreciate both Glenn and Lam, and of course each and every one of you for carving out the time to be here with us and to allow us all to connect through art, through tea, through light. And hopefully we'll see how the future unfolds, but hopefully we'll be able to open up the exhibition for whoever can join us at the garden on site to see it for yourselves. If not, we still promise that we're going to do as much as we can to showcase every little beautiful thing that both Glenn and Lam have put together.
Yeah, we have all the works ready to go, really. So just waiting for the garden to open up so we can go in and then start the work.
Yeah.
So the plan is to go in there around mid-June, mid or third week of June to install it, and then we open in July, beginning of July. So I will just add it. This show is primarily a photography show. With Glenn's ceramic, and the idea is the collaboration. It's we'll show the work together, side by side, but also because I'll be, the plan is keep on going to have tea ceremony in the garden, and I'll be using Glenn's ceramics, his chawan and tea bowls, to do the tea ceremony. And the other thing, conceptually, from the work from the show, I quite like is a lot of my previous shows, I play this idea, I call it the meta world, which is like I will do paintings reference to the space. And so I'll show painting about art space in an art gallery. So this layers and layers of meanings and reference, I call it meta together. And so when Glenn proposed the idea, when we started to talk about it, I thought it fit right into that practice as well, that conceptually, just doing a show about garden in the garden. So that's how we kind of got excited and started talking about it. Yeah. Okay. I'll stop there.
Okay, so thank you all very much. Have a wonderful weekend. I have here Myra is actually thanking you both, and it's a gorgeous exhibit and great to see you both as well. Great to see you too, Myra. Thank you very much for joining us. And to all of you that have been joining us through our art talks, we'll have another one upcoming next week. On Tuesday, we will be announcing who's going to be presenting, so hope everyone can join. And this talk will be also uploaded into the Luminous Garden website as well, as soon as we can, so you get to enjoy it again. So thank you all very much. Have a wonderful day. Et bonsoir à Paris. So thank you very much.
Thank you for joining. Hopefully we'll see you, have a cup of tea in the garden soon in the summer. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.